Hi, my name is Alyssa Chambers and this is astrology and makeup. I'm going to do my makeup today and get ready, and we're going to talk about Gemini in your first house. So this is every single Gemini placement in your first house only. If that makes no sense to you, I'm sorry. I do have a playlist on how to look up your birth chart. So when you're born, you probably know your sun sign. So that's Gemini. And then there's all the other planets, and you want to look those up too because those are different aspects about yourself. So this is going to be only if those aspects are in your first house. There's a whole playlist on how to learn about your first house and stuff like that. This is just the exact placements in the first house. They are also subject to change. It depends on who you are as a person and your other placements. So if you're a Gemini and you have Gemini placements, but you also have fire, you're going to speak a little differently or act a little differently. If you have water or earth, you're going to be much more different. So it kind of just depends on you as a person, how you act, and this is just a little interpretation of that. So hopefully you agree with it, but you might not. It depends on the rest of your chart. So I'm going to get ready and we're going to talk about it. Gemini in your first house is going to be as if Gemini has Aries-like qualities, because your first house is represented by Aries. Your first house is basically how you present yourself, how you put yourself forward, how your childhood was, things like that. So it does get a lot deeper than the meanings that I'm about to tell you, but this is just a generalization, basically. So if you have Gemini in your first house as your sun, that means that you see yourself that way, and also people are probably going to see you that way too, because normally your sun is kind of like how you see yourself and what you think is going to make you happy, but your rising is how other people tend to see you more. But since it's in your first house, and your first house is more of how you present yourself, you're going to present yourself as a Gemini. So people might think that you're very Gemini with your sun and rising in the first house, compared to, you know, if you don't have any other placements there, or you have placements that contradict that. So if you have a different moon, you might still be perceived as very Gemini, which is kind of interesting. If you have your moon in Gemini in your first house, you're going to be kind of aggressively Gemini. People are going to assume, and you are probably also going to kind of resonate with Gemini qualities, because that's your inner self and how you feel about yourself more than how you feel others feel about you. But the first house, again, makes it a little bit stronger. It makes you feel that way a little bit more. So because all three of these are going to be how you show yourself to other people, you're going to act this way a little bit no matter what, or people are going to perceive you this way for sun and rising. That Gemini is kind of rough, because that's why they get such a bad rep, is they love to pick people's brains. They love to be challenging. They love to learn and gain knowledge, and how they do that is through speech, because they're an air sign. So they might talk to you in a way that seems very rude. Sometimes some Geminis, they're like unevolved. It's just to get a rise out of you or start an argument, because they enjoy the banter. They don't necessarily like the arguing itself, but they do like the reaction they get from you and how they can react back, and the back and forth, like ping pong of a conversation. Geminis are super into that. Since they're normally into that, the first house is going to make it even more intense because it's fire. So they're going to definitely want to pick your brain. They're going to definitely want to argue a little bit. They're going to definitely present themselves in a way that is a little bit more on the aggressive side, because that first house really pushes it forward and makes it stronger. So they're gonna probably be very smart. because they like the banter, they like the intelligence, they like being smart, they like knowing things and being a know-it-all a little bit. I'm sorry, they do. And that's going to make them love that back and forth of a conversation, and they'll probably try and start one, and if they can't get one to start, they'll start an argument. People get really upset about this, and this is why I feel like Geminis get a lot of hate, is because they do behave this way very often. But the reason that they do is because they just love to learn, and they love the banter, and they love the excitement of a conversation and learning new things. If you are someone who is dating a Gemini, or you are a Gemini, you want to make sure that this relationship is always learning new things, having new experiences. You want to make sure that you're always, I hate to say entertaining, but like entertaining. They're not a sign that wants to just sit around and speak of nothing. They want to have like a deep intellectual conversation. They want to figure you out. They want to talk about like aliens and money and crazy stuff like that. And to get even further into what they want to talk about and how to be better at talking with them, you want to figure out their Mercury, because Mercury is how you speak and how you think for the most part, and that's going to help your conversations even more. So if you're really into this person, I would look up their chart and get deep into their inner mind, because that's what kind of rules this placement is. Deep thoughts and kind of impulsiveness and getting really intellectual with things. So if you have a Gemini sun, it's very possible for you to also have a Gemini Mercury, because Mercury always follows behind the sun sign about one sign apart. I don't know if it's even possible to go more than 2. I've never seen that before, because they're so close together. So if you're a Gemini sun, you could easily be a Gemini Mercury, and it could easily also be in your first house. If you have a Gemini Mercury in your first house, it's going to be the way that you speak is the same way that somebody who has a Gemini sun or moon would present themselves, because that's what the first house does. So you're going to speak to people in a way that you might sometimes be coming off like you think that you're smarter than them. You might not even mean to do this. You might come off as a little bit rude sometimes. You just, honestly, I swear, like, you just can't even help it. And that's not an excuse at all, but it's just the way that things happen in this placement, is because you get so excited about a topic or so into a topic that you can go on and on and on and on and on, and that can sometimes make people, depending on how they receive information, intimidated, or that can make them feel inferior because they don't take in information like that, and they might not even hold on to information like that. It might be a struggle for them, and that might make them feel like, wow, I guess I'm not that smart. So you want to try and either not do that, or find very like-minded and open people who enjoy the same topics you do, so that way you guys don't end up overdoing it to each other. I personally enjoy a great conversation, a very deep conversation, and I like to talk about really weird things, so I mean, I like it, but some people just don't take it the same way. If you have a Gemini Venus in your first house, you are probably going to tell people you love them, either very aggressively or literally probably never speak of it ever, because it's a mind game. You don't ever want to feel inferior or less than someone, so you might not be as quick to tell people how you feel, because it might feel like a weakness to you, and Gemini really likes to be on the upper hand. They literally can't help it. That's just how they are. They think things are a trick or a game, and So for them, it's hard to make themselves vulnerable. If you're trying to date someone who has a Gemini Venus in their first house, just be patient with them and try to be as open and honest as you can, because they'll really respect and appreciate that, and it'll make them want to do the same. They're not typically ones to make themselves feel vulnerable. They want to make sure that you're feeling the same way, so that way they don't feel stupid. It's kind of cute. It's kind of cute. All of these placements that I've talked about so far, it's really important for them to be mentally stimulated. So if you're trying to date somebody with these placements and you're not a talker, or you're not like an interesting person, you're just chill and laid back, they are going to have a hard time with you, because they really enjoy great banter, they really enjoy great talking, and you should never force yourself to be something you're not with someone, because where's the fun in that? So just know that this is something that they need, is to be stimulated constantly with talking and learning new things and arguing. They enjoy it. It makes them feel fulfilled. A Gemini Mars in the first house might be one of those types of people who blurts things out, who just says whatever is on their mind when it comes to their mind. They can't help it, and they probably don't even know any different. They probably don't even realize that they're doing it. Gemini, because it's predominantly speech and intellect, in any placement is going to love that. And especially Mars in the first house is going to be a little bit more on the aggressive side of how they speak to people, and why they say these things that they say is going to be based on needing to be kind of liked and understood. Somebody with a Jupiter in Gemini in their first house is probably so smart. Somebody who has this placement just like needs to go ahead and be a detective, because you're like born for that. Jupiter is how we learn, and Gemini is loving to learn, and the first house is assertiveness and aggressiveness. That might be the only thing that gets you into trouble, is you want to make sure that you have good signs that help you to learn. So the Mercury that you have will be really important, because if you have a Jupiter in Gemini and how you learn is through speech, but you're shy, you're going to have a hard time learning. If you have a Jupiter Gemini, you're probably going to have a hard time learning through anything besides speech and arguments and talking to people personally. Gemini Jupiter in the first house, because it's in the first house, that will help, but any Gemini Jupiter that we get into is going to have a hard time learning if they aren't being talked to about it. They're not really a hands-on kind of person. The first house will help them to be hands-on, and any other placement in the first house or Aries or any type of fire like that, but if they aren't being spoken to learn or listening about it, they're not going to learn. If you have a Gemini Saturn in the first house, good luck. Anything in the first house, really, good luck in Saturn, because Saturn is stability, and for this particular thing, first house is kind of like instability, and Gemini is not going to help that. It's like putting fire and air together, so you're either going to end up putting the fire out or making the fire bigger. So that doesn't sound very stable to me. People who have a Saturn in the first house, Gemini, are people who are going to need intellectual distraction maybe, or stability, and like learning to feel stable. They're gonna want to always have someone that they could talk to and learn things from, or they're going to feel kind of incomplete. These might be the people who like continuously go to school, like people who, you never met those people who have like a million degrees and they're just like, I'm just gonna go back to school, and they're just constantly learning. Like, that's so impressive to me. It's crazy. But these are those type people. I'm hoping that because Saturn is such a big amount, like a big point in time, that this will happen and people will be very well educated in this time because they'll want to learn. And even better, Gemini and Uranus in any kind of type of placement. First house is really cool because they'll be more assertive, but that'll be the kind of people who really enjoy learning, and that's their uniqueness, or how they're going to revolt in the future, is that they're going to be so crazy smart. There's going to be a lot of arguing though, like a lot of arguing. That's the downside of it, I would say, is that they're going to love to argue. It's going to be so much arguing, but it is also going to be so much learning. It's probably going to be huge breakthroughs in that time. I kind of want to look up when it's been in this placement in the past and see if anything crazy was discovered, because I feel like it had to have been. I swear I'm going to pick a gloss that's not like plain the same brown. This is a different gloss. Like that, I keep doing it. Whatever, we'll talk about whatever. So continuing that kind of mindset of Uranus, going into Neptune, people who have a Gemini in their first house are going to, they're going to be like dream of learning. They're going to want to know everything. They're going to be so smart. It's just whether or not they put those things into action. For a Gemini, Pluto, they're going to have an easier time putting it into action because that's just who they're going to transition into as a person. But you want the Jupiter and Neptune and Pluto kind of to go together as best they can. So you would want these to be signs that are all like fire, that you're doing things to learn, or like a Mercury and fire, Mars and fire, or more Gemini, so that you're actually like speaking and learning, because it's going to be hard to utilize these traits if you don't have things to help you. And that's why your whole chart is so important, is because you want it to all kind of flow together. And what things that don't flow together, you want to learn about yourself so you can get better with it. But that's Gemini in your first house. Anything Gemini in your first house is going to be very interesting. It's going to be like a big fire going. That's kind of cool and a little bit intimidating also at the same time. So you want to really learn how you like to learn more than anything, is my best advice for you, because it's a deep, like, that's deep inner mental things that you want to keep happening. You want to keep learning, and if you're not learning in the best way, then you're not utilizing your full potential. Like, this is a very smart placement. That's really cool. Thank you for watching. I hope that this resonated for you. If it didn't, then you might have placements that go against this. So you might have more water or earth, like you might be more shy, and you might not be as open to talking, which is why it's harder for you to learn. So you want to really look into that. You want to look into your chart. I'm just doing these placements in hopes that I can help someone understand themselves a little bit better. Thank you for watching, and yeah, have a great day. Right on cue.